Hello and welcome to Let's Run Facebook Ads, the podcast with myself, Nick Boddington, and my co-host, Matt Rubus. Here we're going to share insider information about Facebook ads. But as you know, it's not just about running the ad, it's what happens after. So we're going to look into the funnels, the e-commerce, email marketing, lead generation, and much, much more. Everything you need to run successful Facebook ad campaigns. Enjoy. Hello and welcome back. I'm Nick Boddington, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Rubus.
Hello.
Did you say hello then?
Yeah.
Bit late. Episode 18. This week, we'll be discussing being emotionally attached to the products versus the data when running your Facebook ads. And as you know, we're an agency, and whenever we're on our team calls, things always come up, and then we end up spending 15, 20 minutes talking about it, and we think that'd be perfect for a podcast. So that is what this one is about, and probably a lot more. We're also going to be talking about a question that came through from one of our subscribers called Samuro Burston, and his question will be coming up after this first bit about being emotionally attached to your ads. We are also joined by Olivia, Liv in the agency, who is our client success manager. And she is the reason why we've come up with this particular podcast today, because we were on our team call yesterday and it ended up talking about something which I thought is really, really, really cool and really good for anyone to be who's listening to this, whether you're an agency, whether you have clients, whether you're a one-man band, or whether you're the actual product or the owner yourself, or the actual client in this respect, and might be doing some Facebook ads for yourself. So let's kick off. So Liv, the reason we started talking about what we were doing yesterday is basically Liv and I have an account that we run. So Liv is the one who speaks to the client, and myself and my team are in the background working for those clients. Now, one of the things that we do as ads manager people, or media buyers, whatever you might have the name for us, is that we're successful as an agency and growing pretty quickly in the sort of clients that we're getting on board now is because we are not emotionally attached to the client's products at all. All we do is look at data. Now, we obviously get involved in the creative and make things look right. We use a lot of our logic at the beginning to think, okay, this is what obviously needs to be done to get ourselves going. But once we're doing some testing, we don't think about the product, we just look at the data. So the example was that yesterday I was sharing my screen looking at this client's account, and I was going through with Liv and Faye everything that we were doing, and I was just looking at the data, and there must have been 12, 13 ad sets or ads running, weren't there?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
And I was just literally going through it, going off, keep that one on, turn that one off, turn that one off, turn that one off. And then you said, oh, but now we haven't got one of those gift box going that the client wanted to go. And I said, that doesn't matter because it's not making any money, so we're turning it off because it's about making an ROI for the client. And that's what got us into this whole conversation that we're going to record today. And Matt's on here, obviously, as usual, but I want Matt's view on this as well. So I think the biggest thing with this is the fact that a client has its products, and this particular client has a range of products. They're sitting in their offices, they've got their warehouse, distribution, whatever, and he wants to get a product out because it has a good margin, or because it's got surplus stock, or because it's coming up to Valentine's Day. We've got Valentine's coming up this weekend, and he wants to get it out there. Now, from Matt and I's point of view, that's all good and well, but we don't believe that you should be pushing a product that's not selling. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what we want to do is really have a discussion about, Liv, how you find it from when you're talking to the clients. Because as an agency, how we're set up, Matt and I, apart from going on a strategy call, which might be every 4 or 6 weeks, we don't really speak to the clients. So Liv will be the one who's speaking to the clients, seeing what they're doing, what they're going to do for the next quarter, all this sort of stuff. And I suppose from your point of view, what we'd like to hear is the client saying to you, no, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want, and kind of like dictating what they want to sell. And then you've got the other side where Matt and our teams are basically being trained, and we're training our team to come in and just look at the data and not be emotional about it. Would you say that's right? Do you find that like hard from your point of view to fill that gap?
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing is why that happens. And I feel like sometimes clients do push for what they want rather than listening to what we're trying to tell them, is because they need to build that trust with us.
Yeah.
And if they're new to us or they have been with us a long time, and obviously I only came on board in November with Let's Win Social, and I think obviously they're still getting to know me and my expertise, so it's always going to take a little bit of time to them fully trust and know what we're about. And as you're saying, Nick, like with this client that we were talking about yesterday, it's really hard to get that balance of, do we go with what they say because they've got product to shift and obviously they want to make money on it, or do we go with the data? And for me, I ask you and Matt and your teams for your input and your guidance, obviously with your expertise in that. But it's relaying that to the client in a way that they will understand it and appreciate that. And that's where the difficulty comes,
Yeah.
because they've only got a tunnel vision of sell, 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 getting as much profit as possible. But they don't look at the data, which obviously why they have us, really.
Yeah, because I think when you're trying to, you go into business, don't you, to grow a company. So if this particular client is wanting to grow his business into a multi-million pound business, the way I see it, yes, we're an ad agency. Yes, they're giving us some money, their retainer, their ad spend or whatever. But I believe, and I think Matt, you agree with this, that if we took one of his products out of 50, and that one product got him a 12 times return, i.e. 1,200% return on everything he spent, just sell that product. In a way, forget about all the other products, because you're trying to make a dent in that marketplace and you're trying to grow into that marketplace. And if you can do that by getting £12 back for every pound you're spending, that's absolutely great. But what, like this particular client has told us to, he said, right, these are the products that we've got. These are the margins that I've got. And what would be my margins? So the people listening, a ROAS is return on ad spend. Everyone's heard of ROI. We can call it a ROAS, return on ad spend. So he said, oh, for that particular product, I want 3 ROAS. For this one, I need 6. And for this one, I need 7 or something. That's all the instructions that Matt and I need. We'll then do all we can at the back end to try and get that product hitting those particular returns. If it doesn't, we stop selling that product, because like Matt, you really know a lot about that sort of creative side. If it's not resonating with the audience, then there's no point in trying to. You're ending up putting a round plug into a square hole, if that's a saying, which I'm really crap at, as we know.
That's like me, like using these sayings and then you forget what the saying is.
Exactly, but that's what it is, isn't it?
I think, like, for me, it comes down to like being able to have that conversation with client is, okay, so like how well does this sell without ads? Like if these are flying off the shelves normally, then yeah, I would say that the ads are probably just going to amplify that, right? If it's a new thing, then it comes down to testing. So, because I think if they were flying off the shelves and then the ads weren't working, then I think that comes down to us getting the ads into a place where they do start to work. So, all the normal like audience testing, creative testing, hooks, headlines, all that kind of thing. If it is that the client says, right, I've got this brand new kind of offer or selection of products or one individual new product, whatever it is, and I want to see if we can get that shifting, but it's the first time I've ever put this offer together, then yeah, we'll say, right, we'll give it a go and we'll still do all of that testing. And then if we're satisfied through our testing that we've tried lots of different audiences, we've tried lots of different creative, we've tried lots of different copy and hooks and headlines, and then it doesn't tally up or it doesn't compete with the other products that are doing well, then that would be a conversation to say, we've tried it, it's not working as well. You might want to just put your ad spend into the stuff that we know is working.
Yeah, completely.
I guess that's where the difficulty comes in, because they're like, well, I just bought 1,000 of these said products, I need to sell them. Organically is not working, that's why I want to put money into ads. And it's changing their mindset, really, isn't it? And that does take time, because they do need to get into our heads a little bit, but it's us understanding to them that we can't be using all of our terminology because they're just not going to get it, are they? And that's why they've got us to begin with.
But at the end of the day, if you're setting up a business, you're setting up a successful business comes from finding a problem and having a solution for the off. I mean, there's millions of businesses out there that set up and fail because really they've set up a business because they think that the world wants that product or service, but it doesn't. So no one really picks up on it, no matter how much work or money they put into it, blah, blah. It's kind of the same thing with this. So, that particular client that we were talking about, Liv, if he's got 4 campaigns running and one of them's getting 7 ROAS, and it's usually between 7 and 9 ROAS, what we're seeing happening at the moment in a way, because when we go back to before you started, he was telling me these are the products he's got. I was picking what I thought would sell, testing different products out with different audiences, and we were getting up to about between a 7 and a 12 ROAS. Sometimes it was getting high on 12. I was left at it, but then the client was like, hold on a minute, I want you doing more work for your money. Here's other products I want you to sell. At that point, you came on board and you were starting to be the person that liaised with that client. It then what seems to happen is it then turns into more of the client's dictating to us what they want to sell. And then when we can't sell those particular products, we're having to answer back with why. Now, our teams will be doing everything we can using the ways that we do things, what we talk about on these podcasts, to make that successful. But not every product's going to be successful. And we know that from our jewelry clients. Some jewelry sells out really well, others doesn't. And that's just the way it is. What I would rather say to the client is, from people listening to this who are in Matt and I's position, is I would rather say to him, and I think you got this signed off yesterday, just give us more and more money every week to only put into the ads that are working. Now, if you want to give us a little bit of budget, and we touched on this months ago, didn't we, Matt, where every client should have like a monthly test budget, where we test out and they can be prepared to lose that. So let's say that's £1,000 a month out of their £6,000 a month spend or whatever. That £1,000 can be lost. It's just about testing. As soon as there's a product that's working, it gets moved into the normal budget, which goes up and up and every month. And we've tried to do that. And there are some clients which are quite happy with that, but others, there's various reasons. It's like they're in business to scale, but then they don't want to scale because they're scared.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like Matt and I said yesterday, Christ, people in this world are looking for a way to get a 600% return on their money. And many of our clients have got that sitting right in front of them, yet they don't want to put more money into it because they're afraid. Or we have clients that have their Facebook bill come through, shit themselves, and then we call us and say, I've just had a Facebook bill come through for X amount of money. And we said, yeah, but you've made 5 times that amount. Oh, really? Why don't you start looking at the profits you're making opposed to what Facebook is charging you? Because we're trying to look after you as a client.
Well, it just comes into not having the overall kind of like reporting in place and having that holistic view of everything, which is actually even more and more important now with iOS 14, because we're going to lose out a lot on that in Ads Manager, aren't we? So having that full sort of view of the back end and seeing, right, okay, so I have had this Facebook bill, but actually I know, because I'm keeping on top of all of my numbers every day, that this is actually the return that I'm making.
And we have that. We have those amazing reports that you've designed for clients. All they need to do is go to the how much I've made column, £7,000, how much have I spent, 1,500 quid, happy days.
Yeah. And it's that change of mindset, isn't it? It's just looking at it in that different way. And that's where, with this client that we're speaking about, Nick, and what his podcast came from, is that he is getting there and it's taken a little while. So hopefully now over the next month, 2 months, we can begin to scale that 1-2 campaigns even further, that he now has had that twig in his head. Actually, that's what I now need to be focusing on, not having every single product in my catalogue listed just because I want to make money on a little bit of money on each of them.
Yeah, and bear in mind that this particular client is creative's shit, isn't it? I mean, we've done some more, and I think he had an argument with us or with you the other day saying, well, some of my creative's done better. Fine, some of it has. But, at the end of the day, we need to test different creative, part of the dynamic, Facebook makes it easy with dynamic creative. And if his win's fine. We're not emotionally invested in it.
No.
It's not about, oh God, I spent hours doing that creative and his beat me. We're here to serve the client and make them as much money as possible out of their ad spend. That's it. I wish every client's creative would work better and then they'd supply it to us, because then we wouldn't have that headache.
The other thing
Exactly.
to that I think clients sometimes aren't aware of, or they don't necessarily think in this much detail on it, is that an ad that we put out doesn't mean that the click through from that ad is going to absolutely be the product that's in the ad.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that's what I was going to say.
As in what they're purchasing thereafter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, it could be that product that isn't doing so well as the other products at the moment is because of, I don't know, the way that it's being presented in the ad, but they are actually still going to go on and buy that from a different ad, or vice versa.
Yeah. Well, the ad's just taking them to the destination, isn't it? And then they surf.
Yeah. So I think sometimes we can get a bit hung up on the creative, and what the creative really there is to do is to get people stopping in the scroll, and then the copy brings them over to the website, or getting them to do that click or whatever it is that we're asking them to do. It doesn't necessarily need to be like spot on exactly the same as everything else that they're about to do. It has to have that correlation, but at the end of the day, the objective is to get them to stop in the scroll, and if it achieves that, then that's the main thing. It's like another client that we've got who they sell houses. People are seeing an ad for one location, but they're then completing a form on a different location because the locations are quite close together. But there's no control over that. Like once the client leaves Facebook, once the audience leave Facebook and they've done the click, it's up to them what they go and do. And they might have just thought, oh, I didn't realize that location is only 20 miles up the road, and actually I prefer that area to the one that I was looking at first. So that other location gets added to the stats on the ad, and not this one. So, you know, we can.
That's a great point, actually.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, this is where it just comes down to what I call the holistic view is, does it matter? It's still a purchase. It's still a need. Like, it doesn't matter if it's, and actually is more to the point that you're making and why you wanted to do this podcast is, so what? Like, you've still got your purchase. You're not getting a purchase on that. So what if you end up just pushing that one product, if that's the product that's doing well and that's what people are going for?
You could build an entire business out of that one ad. You see it mainly in the States with the typical ClickBank subscription companies, don't you? Where, you know, even you and I, Matt, we could go out and sell someone else's product using ClickBank. You'll see some of those, like, I don't know, the cannabis oil or something. They've got one landing page that scrolls forever. You know, the bottom of it is in Australia, it's so long. And they've got one product, and you can see them because there's some successful businesses that are using ClickFunnels for it, where they've built that landing page, and they're multi-million-pound businesses, tens of millions, from one product, one ad that's been. I'm not saying you and I very well know that they haven't just done one ad and it's gone, oh shit, it worked.
Yeah.
You know, they've done hundreds of ads, hundreds of landing pages, but they've done it. Like all of our clients, if they've got one product that can make them into a multi-million-pound business and establish them as a brand in their marketplace, then do it. But the prime example of this client that we've got is that he's ignored that. You've had to say to him, we need to put more money into the one that's getting six times your return. Mm-hmm. He's spending more time trying to think about other things that he can do, other products, and ignoring there's a gold mine sitting right in front of him that he's been searching for, and all we need to do is put more money into it.
Yeah, and this is so simple as switching one of the ads off might be earning like 2 ROAS and putting that £20 a day into the one that's making 7. And it's just a simple little change as that, and it's making them aware that actually a byproduct of having one ad to one product, you're going to get sales in other areas. So
absolutely,
as Matt said, doesn't matter where your sale or lead comes from, as long as you get it, you're in a better position at the end of the day, aren't you?
Looking at his ad account, I would right now take all the budget out of the other ads and put them straight into the one that's doing 6 times return. I would like treble it in one day. He's had a track record of that ad for about 4 months, not going below 6. So I wouldn't even look at all the techniques of scaling. I would just literally just go into it and just turn it up because it's worked. It's just working too well.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just then changing his mindset and into that way, isn't it? So that's where then my problem comes in. It's not an overnight thing for me to say do this, do that. It's the building that trust, it's building that relationship and giving these snippets of and nuggets of ideas and wisdom that obviously I give them, I collect from you. And it will happen over time. It's just a bit of a slow burner, isn't it?
Where do you think it stems from? Do you think it comes from a place of like, oh, I'm like the ad's gonna fatigue and too many people are gonna keep seeing it and I need to keep putting different things out? Because
Well, we hear that a lot, don't we? The fatigue
Yeah,
thing.
but the thing is, we always go with audiences that are big enough that we know that we can scale. So if it's like an e-commerce store that's, you know, worldwide or whatever, you're looking at like at least 2 million. And then you keep an eye on the frequency. So we can see, like, to cold people more often than not, like they're not seeing it any more than twice at the top of funnel. So it's like a completely new ad to a lot of people a lot of the time. So that can just keep going.
I think it's also because the owner of the ad sees they see their ad more and more, don't they? You always see your own ad a lot of times.
Yeah.
And just because they see it, they start thinking, oh, maybe we need to change up the copy. Maybe we need to change up that picture. And it's like, no, you've got 8 million people in the audience and only 100,000 have so far seen it.
And you're putting a pound in and you're getting £12 back. So
yeah, and alternatively, yeah, and like alternatively, it might be like with the same client, he said, that's fine, but I've just seen one of my competitors fairly similarly copying another one of our ads. So we need to change all of the creative and copy. I'm like, well, no, you're still getting that 7 times return. Take it as a compliment that they're wanting to copy you. If your sales then begin to drop, there may be, but if you're still piling in the money and the ROAS is going up, doesn't matter if anyone's copying you. Just keep
on going with it. Yeah, absolutely. But Matt, going back to your example of, they see the ad and they may not buy that product. That happened with that guttering company we do with, who get, amazing. They get like 16 ROAS. It's brilliant. And they were selling these canopies, which are like basically over the top of a front door. You've got either a thatch bit or whatever, not thatched, the triangular thing, or you've got these canopies that pitch roof. That's it. We've got the canopies which come out, which is just like a square or rectangle thing that comes out and then held up by some wire or something. So we set an ad up for that using the different types. And I said, oh, great news last month. You sold a few of those canopies. And I'm like, oh no, we only sold 2. And I was like, oh, it says here you've had like 16 purchases and done like, I don't know, 25 grand on them. And I was like, no, we just sold 2. People are coming in through the canopy ad because it's attracted them on Facebook, and they've gone, oh, that's quite intriguing. They've gone in because they're intrigued. They've ended up buying other products. So, and it caught me out as well, because when we're in it, we're looking at it as a specific product. But that's the downside of the Facebook Ads Manager, is that we don't see what's being sold. We just see a figure, which is the annoying part, really.
Yeah, but I think that's where then it comes down to the business owner having that shit together in what I call the back end. So, like, for example, with our housing client, that's fair enough. They're a big company, so they have teams that look at their data. Like, I'm not saying that every business owner out there has like their data together, because I know that they don't, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But if you are looking to scale, that needs to be in place to be able to do it confidently and predictably. And like that's where Google Analytics will come in, where we would use UTM tagging in the ad, so you can see that full journey and you can see exactly what the item was that was then purchased from that ad. And then you can see that full journey. But yeah, in terms of what's within our remit and the data that we use, that's Facebook Ads Manager. That's the data, and we use Google Data Studio for that reporting. But from a business point of view, and I think especially now with iOS 14, having an awareness of what happens post-click in other platforms like Google Analytics, or we've spoken with Hyros. Is that how you pronounce it? Hyros?
Hyros, yeah.
Hyros, yeah.
Hyros.
Having access to things like that is just really, really important now. Yeah.
Well, we could go straight into another episode, couldn't we, where we're talking about what things have we seen so far that have been affected by iOS 14.
Yeah, we probably should update the folks on that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where we are. So an ads manager's point of view, this is why we just look. A good ads manager should just be looking at the data. And from a business owner's point of view, who are listening to this, because I know that from some of the reviews we've had, we have got business owners listening to this, is don't be so. Yes, if you go to a good agency, there'll be lots of. A good agency will also, like us, if we're looking at the client's products, we spend a lot of time looking at the products, the website, and things like that. It's not just like give us a product, we'll make it sell. Like, we're not magician. We'll spend a lot of time looking at it. And there'll be certain ones that we think are going to work because we've got experience with knowing what resonates with the Facebook audience, where we've seen success with other clients in the past. It's not like we've just worked with one client, all these different things. But just don't get hung up on, I want that one to sell, I want that one to sell, because it just doesn't work like that. You need, like Liv said, you need to get into the mindset of, I just want to get my products out there, I want to sell goods, and I want to grow my business. And the way to do that is if you've got a product and an ad that's literally burning, and it's just let it go and just keep feeding the fire, just keep putting that budget up and hope to God. And with a good agency, like us, we can manage their expectations on the scaling part, because it turns into a whole different thing of just getting it out there. Anything else you guys want to add to that?
I just want to say that just because a product may not work well in an ad doesn't mean that it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to sell it elsewhere. So say it is that you don't have any history of that product selling, it is something new, try it on an ad and it doesn't quite work, then there are other things that you can do, like through email marketing. And it comes down to the value ladder as well. It often what works is the lower end stuff on the front end on the ad. And then as they're going through the checkout, that's where you can look to introduce upsells and cross sells and retarget through email marketing and things like that to get people into the other products that may not work so well on a Facebook ad.
Definitely. Okay, well, we're not leaving it there because we've got a question. So let me just bring up this question. So this is going back to Samuro Burston, his first part is saying, loving the podcast, by the way, much better than US ones. Yeah. Can take direct action from it. Yeah. Well, we're trying to make our podcast so someone can take direct action from it, aren't we? That's why we're saying things that we're talking about stuff that happens to us every single day. But his question is insight on the on the algorithm, please. How much data does it need within reason for picking the best audiences? So I think, Matt, you and I, we don't have any right or wrong way. We kind of have a structure to how we do this. Do you want to start with how you would basically go about testing an audience and knowing whether you've got a winner? Because obviously lead gen might be slightly different. I'll go from an e-com point of view.
Yeah, so before iOS 14 and the 7-day attribution window, I would almost look at it like the whole 72 hours thing. And look at how much spend there's been, look at just make sure that has fed out. But if I've had no traction at all in the first 72 hours, then for me, I've not hit the mark. I would, and the reason, just to go back, why I've mentioned the iOS 14 thing is because what I am finding, and I did want to talk to you about this, is that there appears to be a lag in the data coming through into Ads Manager. And I don't know if that's iOS 14 related or just Facebook doing stuff in the background at the moment with, the events prioritization and stuff like that. But, I could go into Ads Manager today and it will say that a client has had no leads. I could then, in 2 days' time, look at today's date and there be 3 leads. So I don't know if that's a lead thing and not an e-com thing. I don't know, but that's what I'm finding at the moment. So that's where now I'm starting to think that I need to give stuff a little bit more time because of that lag. Because I could be pushing £100 in one day on an ad and it looked like it's had no traction at all, when actually there's just that lag of the data coming in.
Quite hard, isn't it? Actually, that from that point of view.
Yeah. So you can, before now, I would have quite confidently, with a decent budget, I would have made a decision in 24 hours. Maybe not so much like I'm going to turn this audience off, but like start to look into things and make some tweaks to that particular audience or something like that. So yeah, that feels like a bit of a woolly answer, I know, but it's kind of like a bit of a gut thing as well, which I know completely contradicts the whole like data thing.
We have to do it sometimes.
You do, don't you? But I think like what we were saying earlier as well, like when you think of what Facebook is saying, if we look at it in terms of Facebook's on paper, they say for an ad to leave the learning phase, which is basically them saying, okay, like we feel like we're onto a good one here, like this is a good audience. It's 50 conversion events in 7 days.
Yeah. So it's whether you're going to get those or not, isn't it?
And that will then come down to your budget a lot of the time, not having a big enough budget to get.
Well, that also comes down to that your 72. I was going to do one actually, so I was going to explain my econ one now, but I was actually going to do it live, not on the camera, but just talk you through as I'm looking at it. Because I needed to do it. So basically, the way I do it, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 audiences running now on a £15 a day budget. £20 a day budget. So I'm probably just off because Matt, you and I say that our sort of minimum is £5 per audience, but I've stretched it a little bit because I know that the client hasn't got loads of money and I need to get these findings pretty quickly. So the way I'll do it, I usually have about a 1,500 to 2,000 impression per ad in my head. I like to turn off when I'm around about those sort of figures. Now, this has taken probably 2 days to get there because the budget's not huge. So the reason I do that is because I've got one now, which is the first one, which has got to 1,700 impressions. Another audience has got to, and I'm targeting supplements. The second in line is a Davina McCall one, which is 1,300. And then I've got a couple of others far behind it. Now, we've already had an order come through. So it actually says what's quite strange about this, and this is why I look at it from an impression point of view, is that the audience which has had the order is actually one of the last audiences that is getting any impressions at the moment. Does that make sense? So the impressions are based off of Facebook is seeing traction, isn't it, with that audience. There's engagement going on, and Facebook CBO, because that's how I'm running it, is now going, I'm going to put more budget into the supplements and the Davina McCall one because that's where the engagement's happening. Okay, but I'm not sold on that because I've seen one of the other audiences get 6 add to carts, 2 checkouts, and 1 purchase, giving it 2.5 hours already. So I'm going to keep that one running. I've turned off the one at 1,700. I'll give it a couple more hours, and I'll then turn off the Davina McCall one, which is currently at 1,400. And then what Facebook will do then is use that £20 a day to feed into the other 3. And then I'll wait until they get to 1,500, because basically at 1,500 to 2,000, from my point of view, I can start looking, once they've all stopped, I'll then start looking at the cost per link, which ones had add to carts, which ones had orders, which ones had good click-through rates. I mean, these are getting what? Have I got it on here? Where's my click-through rates? Can't see them straight away. Maybe I'm not on ecom column. Sorry, bear with me. There we go. Click-through rates. Well, here we go. So uniquely, the one I've just switched off is 1.72. One of the ones that is still dragging behind has got a 6.5% click-through rate. And there's another one with a 3.8. The one that's got the orders and the add to carts is 2.9. So I'll start looking through. Does that make sense to you guys, what I've just sort of said? How I have the 1,500 to 2,000. Let's say it's 1,500. As soon as I hit 1,500, I turn those audiences off until they're all off. And then I start analyzing the data to which ones I'm then going to go forward with. And that's basically how I still haven't seen a massive effect from the iOS 14, like you were saying, Matt. Maybe that's because of the lower budget I'm going to is taking when does it set live on Tuesday? It's probably going to be end of play tomorrow by the time they've all fed to 1,500 impressions each because of the low budget. But then, we've got a van competition company where I'm flying through 3 £500 budget a day into 10 audiences. I'm having to turn off pretty bloody quickly because that Facebook has got so much budget to burn through. So in answer to the question, I would, for simplicity, I'm getting the feeling here, Matt, that your explanation was there's stuff going on in your brain because of your expertise in lead gen and stuff, which makes you know exactly when something is going on. I think from a newbie, if they were to look at ecom like I've just done, have your 5 audiences. When they get to 1,500, turn them all off individually because they're not all going to get there at the same time. And then just look at the click-through rates, the cost per click, your CPMs, and then gauge, if that one's a clear winner by the end of it because it's had 3 orders, 12 add to carts, and a really good click-through rate, I'm just going to go ahead with that one. Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes it pretty simple. But as you know, Matt, sometimes you have like 3 of the 5 are really, really good. And there's nothing there saying you have to choose one. I prefer if I can go ahead with 3.
Well, yeah, you're still just giving Facebook more opportunity, aren't you? And if you've got CBO, then you just let that do the work. I think so I think for me, it comes down to the budget in terms of, and then based on the budget, like what data you use. I think like the example that you've given, makes absolute sense to somebody new. And actually, me and Liv were talking about this earlier on today in that with the house company that I have at the moment, so an average lead cost or their target lead cost is £30. And so that's my ultimate goal. That's what I'm looking for. It's leads, and that's my cost per lead goal. We're coming in a lot less than that at the moment, which is brilliant. But because of that cost per goal in comparison to their budget, it's going to take time for them to get those leads, and they are consistent. But if I was to look at, and we're getting 2 or 3 every single day, and that's where I'm going, right, okay, I'm happy with this. I'm just going to let this run and get more and more data. Because I know that the ads are working, I'm getting that consistency. I'm not in a position now, just like to use, say, impressions in your example, to go, I'm gonna switch off that ad creative, or I'm gonna decide that it's women that are aged between 20 and 40. That's my core audience, because ultimately within those leads that I'm getting, there's only been like 30. And I don't feel like 30 as the conversion event and as the goal, 30 is enough of a data sample for me to say, that's the headline that works, that's the copy that works, that's the image that works, and I'm going to scale on that basis because it's at literally 30 conversions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same with mine, really, is the fact that Facebook's decided to push the budget to those 2 audiences. Now, those 2 audiences really aren't running as good as the other 3 that Facebook's not putting the budget towards. So we can't rely on the algorithm. We have to make our own judgment on it. I'm looking forward to actually turning those 2. One's gone off now. I'm looking forward to turning the other one off in the next couple of hours and letting those other 3 perform, because I actually think there's more going to come out of those other 3. And another client of ours, actually, who's, the person I'm working on that account that I've just gone on to now, he said to us the other day after we sent everything over for sign off, he said, I noticed that you're going to set this ad up by CBO, but some of our engagement ads, which is your 7-day stack that I was working on, which we've mentioned on this call before, podcast before, there won't be loads of engagement, blah, blah, blah. And I noticed one of the other audiences is 6 million. And it's like, but CBO doesn't, what Facebook's doing, we're all saying, it's going to work off engagement, where they're going to go. But if it was where the orders have come from and where the add to carts have come from, because the algorithm knows that it's had orders and add to cart, then that third audience that's only had 300 impressions compared to the others 1,500 impressions, surely Facebook would have gone, I need to stop the budget on those other 2. I need to put it all the way to this one now because it's getting add to carts and purchases. But it hasn't. In fact, that account right this moment is a perfect example of that question, isn't it? Because Facebook should do that, but a human being, me, has had to come in and put a human look on it and go, no, I need to turn those 2 off now and let these other ones run. It might be that nothing else comes from it.
We'd be out of a job otherwise.
No, exactly. But so even from a CBO point of view, if you've got one audience at 6 million, another audience that's 250,000, and another one that's just engagement with 4,000 people on your Facebook page to show the ad to, you can still run it as CBO. Facebook is there to do what it needs to do, but you're going to stop this after like 1,400, 1,500 impressions anyway, and make your own judgment on it. And it's not to say that if you don't see what you want to do, you can't retest. This is what we're doing every single day, and frustrating as it is being a media buyer in Facebook is that there's no right or wrong to anything. There's stuff that you've said we should do and I've not found it work on other accounts. There's stuff that we've had with, that van competition company. I've had to go into a technique which is James's client, and James phoned me yesterday saying, what's the cost per lead gone up? And when we first launched the ad, it was at like, some of them were like less than £1, and £1 a lead, £1 a purchase is where they want to be. Today it's been like £4 a purchase. Yesterday I tried the very, very technical way of running ads, is to turn off the one that's not working, duplicate it, and then turn it on again. Because sometimes that's worked. Turning an ad on and off.
Never done it.
Oh, you remember that client that ended up we did the car competitions with? Remember? Every 2 days, I turned the ad on, duplicated and returned and turned on the duplication, and the cost came down. Every single time.
I just wonder, like, if that's probably not, I don't know, I've not done it, but are you always going to struggle to scale?
Oh, you're never going to scale. But the reason I'm doing it with this one is because we only have until the 24th of this month, and it stops.
Yeah, like a short term, yeah.
So
part of my thing is I go in every day. I'm not just doing that. I've tried lots of different audiences today. I need to see how they're going. But it's one of those frustrating ones where I'm chasing the lead cost. And you sometimes get these, Matt, don't you, where it's like, it's just too all over the place. There's no consistency. And all we're trying to do as an agency is get something consistent for our client and for ourselves, because we can't grow as an agency if we're running around after 3 clients because we're having to spend all our time on those 3 clients. We want what we call business as usual, which is some ads that work, and we spend a bit of time each month making sure those ads carry on working.
All I will say on that is that, and people do forget this, is that nothing right now is consistent. So outside of Facebook, in the world, nothing is consistent. And actually, like, that does affect ads and marketing and things like that. And we are, like, you know, taking on clients and growing the agency at like a really tricky time when it comes to ads, with things being like all over the place, up and down all the time. So I think, that often does have quite a big impact on ad performance. And sometimes, like you say, we're not magicians. There's only so much we can do. But on the whole, we've managed to get some amazing results over the last few months for clients. But
clients understanding, aren't they? So the client call that Liv and I had earlier with our motorsport merchandise company, and you know, it's half, 50% down compared to the ad on the ROAS compared to what it was before the lockdown. But, you know, they said, you know, lockdown's not helping. The motorsport industry isn't helping, but we're still in profit. Even if it's just a little profit, we've just got to still keep on getting it out there, because once the restrictions are lifted and motorsport starts again, they'll go back up to 4, 6, 7 ROAS.
And that's the key, I think, is that a lot of companies are like, oh no, like, switch everything off, which is the worst thing you could do. Because then, you will get forgotten about when things do go back to normal.
Definitely.
Exactly.
So,
okay, cool. Well, brilliant. That was a good one. I hope everyone listening got something out of that. That's what we're always trying to do. Thank you, Liv, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Liv, this was Liv's first podcast, and you were a little bit nervous, weren't you?
Yeah, it's funny when you're being recorded. You're like, gosh, do I sound okay? What am I saying right? So it's just getting over, as you said, Nick, like, it's overcoming those fears. It's the same thing with clients, isn't it? Like, take that leap and it will work. So no, I'm glad I've come on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
we should have you as a guest more often to talk about what you face day to day, and how we how we as a team then try and deliver for a client, because you're hearing from a client a lot different things to what we're wanting to do for a client.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no,
Sounds
I think that'd
good.
be good. I think there should be a regular slot for Liv and a regular slot for James.
Yeah.
Have a whole agency one. I just wanted to quickly say an apology to the last, I don't know if it was the last episode or the one before, both, but we have been, the sound quality has been a bit off. So yeah, apologies for that one, guys. I'm hoping that today's a little bit better. We're trying something a little bit different. And we're doing some stuff in the background at the moment. Basically, I put a post out on LinkedIn a minute ago, Nick. I don't know if you've seen it yet. This all just started off with us having a bit of a chat and let's see what happens. And now it is actually getting traction. So we are kind of wanting to just, the
podcast, you mean?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
we've had we've had reviews coming through, haven't we? Different people in America, all sorts. It just shows how long this takes to just get traction. But where will it be in 2 years, hey?
That's it. But I think what we don't want to do is become stuffy and like rehearsed and all of that. Like it will still be very much like a chat and like all of that authenticity. But maybe, it would be good if people didn't have a crackly or a robotic Nick at the end of the podcast. So
was it that bad on the last one?
I think it was the one before.
And it was that bad, was it?
The last one, okay. Yeah, just a bit laggy, but it's only a one-off. So we're doing what we can with lockdown and Zoom and stuff, aren't we? So
yeah, exactly. We'll have a little podcast studio soon. We'll be able to, now that it's the more traction that gets, the more we want to invest in the podcast, and so probably a proper podcast studio at some point.
And please just drop us a message on social media or connect with us on LinkedIn if there is anything that you want us to cover. It would be nice to get like a regular thing going on here where we do questions that people send in to us and just bring it to life a little bit more.
Yeah.
Great.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt. Great sign off. Okay, Liv, thanks for joining. Thanks, Matt. See you in the next one.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us again today. If you want to find out more, please head over to our socials at Let's Run Social, where we share daily content. And please feel free to drop us a message. We'd love to hear from you, and any questions that you would like answered, we can do that here on the podcast.